Welcome, everybody, and thank you for taking some time out of your day to learn more about. We're really going to talk about people, process, and technology because I think that is a continual struggle. But our panelists today have unique perspectives and have been in the industry for quite a long time, so they've seen the evolution of tech. But we'll start with some brief introductions, where you are, how long you've been in the industry, and your area of specialty.
Okay. I've been in the industry for clearly not a long time because I'm so young looking. Although in reality, it's been over 25 years. I currently work at North American Risk Services. We're a TPA, we're national. I am head of strategic partnerships there, which puts me in a unique position to look at most of the innovation and technology vendors that are in the space. I've worked for a carrier, I've worked for an association, and that's where I am today.
Excellent.
Jessica?
All right, my name is Jessica Ballard. I'm the VP of Risk and Claims for Outdoorsy/Roamly. So a little context there, Outdoorsy is a P2P marketplace for RVs, and Roamly is the annual RV insurance. I've been in the insurtech space for 10 years, and I'm really excited about this panel.
Great. Hi, I'm Ursula Merton. I have to say I'm the chronologically gifted insurance veteran at this point in my career. I'm currently with Green Shield Risk Solutions. We're a digital MGA focused on affluent homeowners products, basically writing good properties in cat-prone geographies. So we're really keenly focused on data insights and leveraging third-party data providers and solutions in order to automate as much as we can in our processes. But most of my career, I kind of had a 360 view of with my career working on the insurer side, carrier, TPA, broker, and then consultant for about 4.5 years, and kind of led me into the insurtech space.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Preston McGowan. I'm Senior Vice President of Digital and Customer Experience for Private Client Group, which is formerly AIG Private Client Group, or Private Client Select now, which was formerly AIG Private Client Group, which provides risk management and insurance services for high net worth groups. And before I joined AIG and now PCS, I've been in the commercial insurance marketplace for over 35 years in a variety of IT, strategy, and claim litigation management leadership roles.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Preston, we'll start with you since you've been through a variety of transformations, not just claims, but technology and process. What do you think holistically the industry is doing well, and where do you think we still have opportunity to learn and grow?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I also want to thank Clearspeed for giving us an opportunity to share and learn from you as well. First, the good stuff, right? I think as evidenced by this conference, the growth, the variety of products and services in the insurance space is phenomenal. And it continues to grow, and it grows far beyond what I had expected when I first came to this conference almost 7 or 8 years ago. And I mean, it's on every aspect of the claim value chain, whether it's pre-claim and risk management, the use of IoT, the use of sensors, fraud detection, the integration and connectivity of the various platforms, which for those of you who have been in the business for a while, you had a claim system, you had an underwriting system, you had a billing system, and if they ever talked to each other, that was phenomenal, right? We're getting better. Right? I'm not saying we're all the way there, but we're getting better in that space. And also, just-in-time payment and claim servicing. These are things that were sort of jettisoned like a couple of years ago. Now they're available. That being said, I think that, the way that we manage this technology and this growth of opportunity hasn't really matured in the way that we needed to, in the way that I would say gets us the highest return in the investments that we make. So and just to be specific about it, sort of legacy thinking such as business versus IT, change management as at best HR a responsibility, at worst a second thought, and also data management as an IT issue versus a corporate asset. I think we're still in that world. I'll tell you a quick story. When I started my career 35 years ago at Continental Insurance, I started off, I was a fully just minted engineer. I was ready to go. I wanted to create systems and write code. And they said, well, Preston, we're going to send you to become a commercial underwriter for 9 months. And I was mad. I just spent 4 years and a whole lot of money to get into my career. And they said, but the philosophy of that organization, which was novel then, and I want to see come back into our industry, was there's no way that you can build great technology if you don't understand how we make money, how we service customers. So I became an underwriter. And that has served me very well in that I can make better day-to-day decisions as I'm managing technology. I can be more strategic in the thinking. But I think the most important aspect of it is I have empathy on both sides. I understand what a claims adjuster is going through. I understand what an underwriter is going through. And although I know we could do something better and move faster and make solutions happen in lightning speed, I have to meet people where they are. And I got to meet the organization where it is and put solutions that are actually going to drive change, not just sound cool.
Terrific. On the flip side, Jessica, you have a more agile environment. And I think Preston made an important point that the technology is kind of outpacing us to how we're implementing it, but you have a kind of a green playing field. So could you share what you're doing differently than maybe some of the prior companies you've been at?
Absolutely. So I'll start just backing up a little bit and talking about how the landscape of my role is a little bit robust, right? On one side, I have a P2P marketplace where I have 2 people who are my customers and I have people handling claims. So when I started at Outdoorsy, that organization was pretty built. They had tools that were available that they were using and they were getting the job done. Then on the flip side, we had launched Roamly, which I also managed claims for, had only been around for a year. 2 different customer bases, very different needs from a claims adjuster perspective, from a processing perspective, from a customer service perspective. So it was really stepping back and looking at, okay, what tools can I find that benefit both sides of the business, that they are able to talk to each other and kind of share information among these 2 teams. Someone who may buy my annual RV insurance product may also run on my marketplace. How do I make sure that that risk doesn't overlap each other, right? So I really had to take a different approach than I would at a traditional job. Or prior, I was at Root Insurance, and we're dealing with one customer base. I know what I'm doing. And that marketplace side was a little bit different, right? So really stepping back and looking at what they needed and how those tools could benefit both. And I think when we start to look at tools, we have to be very strategic about it. A lot of times we come to these conferences, we go to the booths, but we don't know what we're really looking for. We have to understand from a consumer perspective, what do we need to satisfy our customer, but also what do the people who are doing the job need, and how can we make them both work? And sometimes it even comes down to what is more important. A lot of insurtechs, we are very focused on tech, but we're talking about tech internally and not so much more for our consumer versus our actual employees. And what does that look like? And Preston made a good point. I have great engineers on my team. I have great product people. I have great product managers, but they've never worked insurance. And when I started in my career as well, I had to work all the roles because it's really hard when you go to an engineer or product person and they're building something and you say, hey, can you build this for me? You get it back and you're like, hey, that's not compliant. Like we can't do that. Like let's back up, let's revisit. So I really had to, take a step back and look at our environment, our landscape, and make decisions and educate individuals who were working on different tech for me that we were building internally to make sure that they really understood the business, what we are able to do, what we can't do, when notices need to go out, how do we be compliant in these areas. But then when I'm looking for external tools, for me, it's about not saying no to anyone, taking the demo, thinking outside the box about the solution they provide. Prime example, Clearspeed. as I talked to Jeanette about Clearspeed, I was talking to her about it on the annual side of our business, where we sell annual RV insurance, and how do we catch fraud. But as she was going through the demo, I said, this works for a marketplace. I have 2 customers who are meeting in a driveway or at a QT parking lot. They're exchanging information. I'm not there. They return the vehicle, and we get these claims in, and it's one customer versus another customer. It's not traditional insurance where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna side with the person who pays my premium. It's, oh, I took a cut from both of you. How do I make this work, right? So really taking that technology and thinking, oh yeah, Clearspeed does work for traditional RV insurance when I wanna talk about theft and fraud, but how can I use this in my marketplace? Can I have questions that come up that I give to the customer or the owner of the vehicle and also the renter to distinguish who caused this damage? When was this damage discovered? Are you telling me the truth? So I would say take those demos, listen to what the product was built to do, but also think outside the box on other ways that you could use it to benefit your business as well.
I think that's a great point, because as technology has become more prevalent, you can have great tech, but if your people don't buy into it, it's a piece of technology. If you have process and your people don't buy into it, it's something written on a piece of paper. So how do you get that technology that not only helps your people service your customers, but makes your business better and smarter and hopefully more profitable, right? I think that's the challenge that I hear, even particularly here at ITC. So you have a nice combination where you're able to do both.
And I get both. And I think as we talk through tech, sometimes we all have objectives in our goal, right? My product team has an objective, my underwriter, my sales, my service team. When I also look at demos, I think about, okay, what are the things that I could sell these other departments on that help them, so that when I make that pitch, right, and I want that budget, or we're all fighting for this money, I'm like, listen, we could do this and it benefits you, and you, and you get that buy-in, because it is really hard. There are a lot of options out there and you don't know, well, you know what you want and they know what they want, but how do we get us all on the boat on some collective things that can benefit all of our departments in our businesses?
Curiosity, who in the audience is implementing some type of technology today? Who has the process down and already is thinking about their people? That's an answer, right? we tend to get excited because, you know, tech and insurance is like the least sexy industry in the world. Unfortunately, it is, I know. But the tech is sexy, right? It makes it, especially in attracting new talent. So you talk about how you can optimize it for, you know, the marketplace, but to attract talent, we have to be digital organizations, right? And so if we don't get something that's easy to implement, something that they can use that helps them to do their job better, then that market share and the customer retention becomes infinitely more challenging, right? Tina, you have a unique perspective because you work at a TPA, so you kind of get to see behind the curtain of lots of carriers and self-insureds, and all of them do that differently, even though we say, you know, we have a special secret sauce. But what do you really think is the insight that you have from like, how do they choose technology today? Do they come here? Are they shopping? Do they talk to each other? How do most people
First of all of our clients are perfect. So this has nothing to do with them specifically. But I think there's a lot of different things happening. I think it depends on, you know, if they have a person in the role, because I think that's something that's missing. Everyone's so busy trying to do their day job and keep their head above water that do they have someone who is focused on looking for technology and innovation? Sometimes for our clients as a TPA, we act in that manner. We bring things to them. You know, they have a lot of things that kind of prohibit them sometimes, I think, from moving forward. One is legacy systems, which that's what's so interesting to me about you. It's probably easier in a newer situation to kind of pivot and find you know, new technology that works with what you have. You know, a lot of them are working with old legacy systems. God knows when I started in claims, we were still using a DOS-based system. You didn't even use your mouse in it.
I think there's still some out there, by the way.
I could tab through screens like nobody's business. So there's, you know, we have legacy systems. You have to have interoperability within those when you're adopting technology. So I think there's, you know, they have some barriers there for that. The other piece of it, I really think, is it's kind of overwhelming. Mm-hmm. There's so much out there and it's moving so quickly. And I think people are trying to maybe wait and see what's the silver bullet, what's going to come out that does all the things. And I just don't think that any of us have time to wait for that. So I think it's, what are we trying to solve for, right? I think that's a big thing that comes up. So for the client, what are they trying to solve for? And to try to find something that they can use and adapt for that item. I think we talked about this earlier. It's, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So about Clearspeed, not to make it a pitch, but, fraud is a big thing that goes across any type of, whether it's a carrier or self-insured frauds, a huge topic in claims. So to take something like that everybody knows that they have and try to make that process easier and more efficient, a low barrier of entry, essentially. So there's not a lot of huge IT API work that has to be done necessarily. I think a lot of people, when they think about technology and innovation, automatically think about the IT and data piece. But a lot of these products, you can kind of pick up and start using. Yes, you can integrate down the line if you want, but I really do think it's about finding something that's going to solve an issue, putting it in place, whether it's with a proof of concept or just going all in. Again, getting adoption, because if you're using it as a tool for your adjusters, and I think a lot of these things are and should be, are they going to utilize that tool?
Yeah.
Is it really going to do what you think it's going to do for them? Are they going to be more efficient? Are they going to spend time? I think I'm going to steal this from Preston, but he said it the other day. He hasn't said it here yet, so I'm going to take it. You want to take the mundane things and automate them and leave the complexities for the human beings so that they can touch them. So I know that was a little bit all over the place.
No, it's good. So I'll steal another one that I
Oh, wait,
heard.
I think Ursula had something.
Oh, no, I was going to just poke in a little bit because you guys are all like touching all the points on what we're doing here at Green Shield. We started from absolute scratch. Where we're a little bit different here is that we brought in 100 years of insurance experience. So I brought in industry veterans to our little digital M&A here, and they came from Fortune 500, a lot of them. And so they didn't really have that skill set that, oh, by the way, we're going to bring this solution on and you got to help, configure it or put it together, and you got to be a technical person. So that we had that little bit of a baby struggle on it. And I want to bring on the point too of overwhelmingness. My CEO will tell you that we've done so many demos. I think we stopped counting at 100, right? I mean, we really wanted to find the right tools for our people. And so they were an integral part in picking out those tools. So I come from an audit background as well. So I drive them crazy. And I'm sitting here like an auditor asking them questions. And I'm like, yeah, but what does that mean? Why do you need this? And so we did that very, very, very focused on finding the right tools. And then you're not going to get the end-to-end tools, but you can find little tools that all connect to each other. And my favorite 3 letters in the alphabet right now are A, P, and I. Without APIs, we didn't have that over 20 years ago. I was dying back then for an API, right? So
You're doing batch jobs.
yeah, so I'm not afraid to have 5 systems to run underwriting. I'm not afraid to have 5 systems to run claims now because I know that I can integrate that. So the first thing out of my question with any of my third-party vendors is always, you had an API for that? So just wanted to add on to that little.
Just to piggyback, I'd like to hear the panel's perspective too. I think the number one challenge, at least I hear from insurtechs, there's some phenomenal technology that frankly we've lost because they're no longer here, because we didn't support them. We didn't adopt it because the fear is it's going to break my process, my people won't let, there's this unnecessary fear about technology, but with APIs, once you do it 2 or 3 times, there's a saying, right? We never want to be first, but always want to be second or third. We have to have leaders in the industry that now want to become first and set the example for what InsurTech does in the business. So could you comment on that?
Absolutely, I'll talk about that. I think that it's okay to be first, but understand what you're doing, right? I will be first if it's like, oh, I get this little enhancement. And sometimes it's like that elephant, right? All these things are wrong. We're focused on the big picture. Let's drill this down a little bit. I have a F&OL problem, simple. Like before the claim even gets to a person, I have an F&OL problem. I could be a first adapter of an F&OL product because if it doesn't work, I'll go to Google Sheets. Like, I'll figure it out. Like, something will happen, right? So I think I agree with you 100%. We do have to support these businesses, but also understand that, like, you have to evaluate the risk. Like, what can I be first on? You want to launch a brand new claim system and you want me to, like, completely get rid of mine? And I could document, text, pay, SMS, fax. Like, okay, let's talk about this. What can we integrate? What little piece can you give me that I could try out? And how does this work? So it's all about evaluating the risk, being willing to take some risk. We're on insurance. We know what it's like. Look at it, get an actuary or underwriter to help you through it. They'll make you a table. And really look at like what you can afford to do. And it's out there. You can do it, but I think sometimes we try to tackle the whole problem instead of breaking it down to little pieces. And if we broke it down a little bit more, we would get to that solution a lot quicker.
I agree to that totally.
The only thing I would add to that is, organizationally, you have to be designed to do that type of work, whether it's, I call it innovation lab, but it could be a couple of people with a couple of laptops that do cool stuff and try to see if it works, but it doesn't derail your organization from sort of the core services that it provides. And then once you get not only the technology straight, but you use it as an opportunity to bring the underwriters and the claims and the finance and the executive team in to see it and work it and then get their perspective on it, I think then you can start having conversations around scale, and then you can have the conversations around what are all of the things that have to work in order for this to integrate into our platform. I think to your point around lost technology, sometimes we look at a point solution and think, this is gonna solve all of our problems to get everybody excited, and then something goes wrong and they're like, well, scrap it all, it's just not worth it. Let's just keep doing what we're doing, which is at times counterproductive. So start small.
I think it's almost always counterproductive.
Always counterproductive. But never lose that opportunity to bring the business folks, and I hate saying that, but the underwriter, claim, finance, customers in on the project so that they can weigh in and start building adoption.
So you had a critical point that I think a lot of organizations, right, not just claims people, because we have to work with our partners, but technology should be part of a strategy organizationally. Otherwise, you're solving little problems when you could have a fire over here, right? And unless it builds up to something, people also get lost, right? That's where you get adoption issues, you get process issues, because it's like, let's just plug this in to fix FNOL. So Ursula, what would you say about, create the strategy, create the plan, work the plan? So in your organization, you're progressive as well. So are you looking 12 to 18 months out, or are you still focusing on a combination of both current problems and future issues?
So this first year, we really focused on quarterly goals, right? You have to. One, because we want to be nimble as possible. But as we continue to mature our infrastructure over time, we're coming up on 1 year that we've been around here. And so we're at a really good spot. So over the 12 to 18 months, now that I've kind of got our core infrastructures in place, I'm keenly focused, again, on all the API services, right? So, and we're going to continue to grow from a people perspective. So we want to make sure that we have from policy and guidelines in place and all that fun stuff. But really keen on, what capabilities can we get out of the current systems that we can, what is the work required around getting those capabilities, and also thinking about other types of offerings in place. Even some vendors that we have now that I already know is a disparate kind of process, I'm going to those vendors, or I'm going to my team and I'm saying, hey, can't we do something where they can reconfigure the system so that we can just automatically do this? This drives me nuts, and it probably drives you nuts. Double entry, double manual entry. If anyone double manual entries anything in my organization, I'm immediately all over it and saying, how can we automate this? Because like we talked about, I don't want you spending a lot of time on Monday tasks. I want you to really spend a lot of time on the high value tasks. That's why we brought you here, as to your expertise. And so whatever I can do to make that life easier. And so we'll continue on a quarterly basis, I think over the 12 to 18 months, look at this constantly. And it's talking about, you talked about earlier, like sometimes it doesn't work. We've ran into that, and we talk about, working in a startup, how sometimes you're crying and you want to punch people in the face, or, you say, I'm taking the rest of the day off. Those are some of the things we do. We realize, God, we just spent 3 months trying to get this thing to work, and it sucks. So we go back to the drawing board, but I don't see anything wrong with that. I think a long time ago, that would have been a huge issue because it was a huge cost factor involved when we made those kind of mistakes. Not today.
Just to expand on that a little bit, so we've talked about years. It's like vendors, right? We have hundreds of them in claims, but I think from a technology perspective, you have to look at tech companies as a partner. So it isn't just the tech; it's how they can come in, implement the tech, help you improve your process, guide you what they see from other carriers or TPAs or self-insureds. Do you see people still struggling with that?
Yes, here's the thing, and I've done this a couple of times. Really become good friends with your SI partners, right? We don't have a team, and we never plan on staffing a huge IT team, right, within our organization. And so, it is changing the way and reskilling our people currently today, but also making sure that our SI partners are really well aware of our business, and also that we have a really good working relationship to them. And that's why I say where they become the BFFs. And we implemented a system in 90 days, right? And people are like, what? I was like, yeah, because you know what? We prepped. We had a really good relationship with our SI partner, and our people were on it as well. And so I think you're going to have a lot of really smooth transitions if you really establish those relationships early on.
Right, because going to the cost factor, right? We always think tech, with our claim systems or policy systems, you have to have an outsourced implementation company, and there's an extra cost in there. But when you're talking about partnerships, you're getting the benefit of getting all the business analysts and the, data analysts that you don't have that see your business from a different perspective. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just to that point, whether it was bringing in technology for a large organization like AIG or a law firm where I was the chief transformation officer, I would see some really cool stuff, really, really cool stuff. And then I was like, okay, we got everyone agreeing this is good and this can help our organization. How can they be a partner to us, right? Because one of the things, and I used to use this term with vendors all the time, it's like, we love you, but we can love you to death, right? We can bring you in and we're thinking a level of scale that you can't support. So you need to be honest about your ability to scale, what other partnerships that vendor has, so they can get talent in very quickly or get services delivered, and that they're along for the ride. And certain things, since I have an auditor next to it, like compliance and things like that, they have to show evidence that they can handle that part of it, because as a buyer, I don't necessarily want that burden on me, right? So I think as vendors in the audience, be prepared for all of that, but also have a cool product that works and it can actually solve those issues that we've just talked about.
And just to what Ursula was saying is, like, you've done 8 trillion demos, but like how many clients really come through? I'm going to steal one of your phrases. Are you a tech tourist? So are you all here just to go out and see what's cool and what's nice? Or are you really looking for a piece of technology that elevates your strategy, elevates your customer experience? Because if you're not thinking strategically in that way, then everything looks cool, right? And you could speed date for years, and then your organization is being bypassed by your competitors, right? So have you seen people get better at adopting technology faster, or do you still think we're in that, let's wait and see, let other people touch and feel and see it works?
Not materially, to be completely honest. And I think it's this weird world that we're in right now. I don't know who's from New York, but there used to be this commercial for Size Sims, which is a clothing manufacturer. And the tagline was, the educated consumer is your best customer. We have executives in various underwriting claims that either truly understand technology or think they understand technology. And there's a bias that is created there where they think, well, how hard could this be? I created my own webpage. Why can't you do this for this X billion-dollar organization? And I think that lack of understanding, empathy, never having to run a data project or an execution project, they become these tourists, and they want to see everything, and they come back and they dump it on the CIO's desk and says, do this because I saw it and it's going to be cool and I read it on the plane. Okay, That's fine, but you have to be designed to do that type of experimental work. So I think it's getting better. I think the executives are learning the challenges of implementing data and technology strategies, but it's not there yet. And I think there are things that we can do as an industry to make that a little bit better and keep increasing the adoption.
I think organizations get stuck too because it's a cost, right? Working in claims for all these years, right? It was like, well, you're a cost center, right? So you don't get the budgets for technology and whatever. And I still see that today where companies will not do something because of the cost factor of it. The other thing too is getting caught up in, I do this sometimes, guys, I forget what I was gonna say. Making quick decisions. You will hem and haw over it for months, so a year goes down the road and then it gets dropped off. So I think, to be quick in your decisions and doing it, and then also just, I guess, there's a cost factor, but there's also a humongous, benefit out of that for your people. And again, from that super high level, right, 40,000 foot level, they're not seeing the people down here that every day they have to manage all these systems. And I was always the guy, screaming and yelling about how, it's so hard to do my job. They don't hear that, up here, so.
And I don't want to go into Gary Vee, but because he's much smarter than I am. But if you heard him this morning, he was talking about, the next 5 years in LinkedIn and social media. But that's not how our business works. Insurance is still a people business. We buy from people we like and trust. When we need to find a partner in tech or anything else, we call people that we know. Who do you use? Who do you like? Who's performing for you? Because otherwise, we don't know, right? To your point, we can get them in, scrap it all. It didn't work out. But from a consumer perspective, so I'd like to hear your perspective on this. They want things faster because they are on social media we shop online while we're in the airport, we're in the grocery store. So our customers expect that, but we don't necessarily run our businesses that way. So from a customer experience, how do you feel implementation or how you've done things just a little bit different? Do you see, not from an NPS score, but just from a customer satisfaction and retention?
It's funny that you bring that up because I think sometimes we assume what the customer wants and we don't do the research and really know. And the reason why I say that is this. I'm in RV insurance. It's not like your car. Everyone does not have an RV parked in their driveway. These are typically high-end vehicles or people who live off the grid, so they're minimalist, right? Two different customer sectors. So as we launched Roamly and we did that business, right, everything was, you could do this online. They want to talk to people. Mm-hmm. So we did all this tech and I'm like, our F&O process is so cool. You could do all these things. You can click where the thing is damaged. And we get people who call and they're like, yeah, I dropped out the flow. I'd prefer to talk to a human. Right? So I think a lot of that is we have to step back sometimes and really do the research and understand our customer base because it's not always what we assume to be. We like the tech. It's cool. But sometimes the customer wants a human. They don't want to check the status of their claim by logging into the portal or upload their documents that way. I want to take a picture on my phone, right? So I think it comes back to really listening to the consumer and listening to the people who talk to the customer. They get the most feedback. One thing that Outdoorsy and Roamly does really good is we give our reps the most feedback channels I've ever seen anywhere. And they come in hot all the time. But we keep that loop open as well. We talk about hey, this was a good idea. We may be able to move on this. This is why we can do this now. This is why we cannot do this now. So that they constantly continue to come back and it's not like I'm submitting this Google form and no one's reading it. I don't know what's going on. So I think it's about starting that feedback loop, really doing research to understand what the customer needs, and really talking to these first-line employees who are in the trenches every day doing the job to see what they need, what the customer is telling them, and really circling back and implementing that feedback.
Right. I really like what you said about the feedback loop because I was going to ask the question of whether or not you're consistently doing that research because I think that's something people do as well is they do the research, they make that change, and then they just set it. And that's how it is for the next 50 years. Even though that the customer base might change or people themselves might change. I was also going to say, I do see a lot of RVs because I live in South Florida.
Oh, well, yeah.
So I know.
I don't write there.
I understand those people that want to talk on the phone. That's my grandma.
Exactly.
So, Tina, I'd like you to start, and then anybody else can piggyback on the answer too, because tech, like we said, is typically we look at it and there's a problem. You know, we have 70 problems in claims at any given time, and we just have to put our finger in the dam. But the tech becomes almost irrelevant over time. It's what data and insights can it give you? Or, you know, there's efficiencies and optimization in claims and process, so your people aren't having to do double entry and things of that nature. But ultimately, there should be a partner with your tech that has either internally or the tech company itself that provides you a different analysis of your business, right? A different way of looking at it. Have any of you had the experience where not just the technology improved, but the data that you don't capture, right? Because you might have things that you want to capture as your book evolves or as you scale, but you can't go in and spend another, you know, $500 million to update Guidewire or whatever claim system that you have. So it's challenging to get that data.
You know, we have a couple of implementations that are going on currently that I think are going to result in that additional look at data. We're also taking all of the data that we're getting ourselves and also from all of our partners and putting it into a bit of a data clearinghouse. That's probably a really old term. There's probably something new and cool that it's called now, but to take a look at it ourselves. So yes, we have some partners in different space in claims, you know, especially if you look at workers' compensation specifically, you have a lot of medical pharmaceutical insights that you can get from different vendors that really drill down more on that level of data. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're seeing now. I do like the partners that offer that. And to piggyback on what we talked about earlier, I don't want to just buy the software. I don't want to buy the software and you tell me it's highly customizable and then you walk away. And then I don't know what to do with it because I've never customized it before. So I think that's a really important component of the data as well, but I'll let you guys.
So for us, we're very, very focused on the collection of data. You know, we're collecting data, you know, we're focused right now on wildfire risk and cat-prone areas. So we're collecting a tremendous amount of data through the various channels that we have through our data insights. So we are kind of digital, kind of data first organization. And so and again, this is what we struggle from 20 years ago. I would collect data through Excel sheets. I would literally copy and paste off out of AS400 if it would let me, right? Into your Word doc, blah, 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 blah. And I would put it in Excel and I would run and put filters and get my data, create access databases. It's crazy. We don't have to do that today, right? So, I think about my, you know, in the beginning of time here, you know, of my career, and then I think about what we can accomplish today and how we can take advantage of data, whether it's from, you know, claims data over historical data over time, our underwriting, even our, you know, we have the wildfire risk mitigation services that we offer as well. It's like we can leverage this data and it can be used across the entire organization.
Head of digital, and I don't know how to turn on a mic. You know, one of the things I think that, you know, I am much more conscious about now, just as a background, we just went through a 3-year, but $180 million transformation of our billing, claims, policy admin system, data systems, did all of that, right? And then once we got everything in, the actuaries, the risk managers, they were like, well, where's all the data that I need for my models? And it was a missed opportunity. They should have been at the table at the original design so that we knew, A, what data is collected, but we could organize that data in a way that is usable for them in the future. And if they needed additional data sources, we could scale. But then that becomes another project and it becomes something else that you have to prioritize with the million other things. So, you know, I am going to spend a lot more time with our chief data officer. And in fact, I was just at a conference with him last week to make sure that I understand those needs early so that, you know, when we're collecting and managing that data going forward, it's all included into the strategy.
And that's an excellent point of why, if you're not thinking about some of the companies that are here in Series A or B, they're much more agile. They want to grow, they want to give you what you need, but they don't necessarily know what it is because they're not in insurance. They created the tech, right? So if you get with a company that's a little bit younger, they can build whatever data field, I mean, they can do whatever you want. So from a partnership perspective, you don't have to go through that prioritization. You just say, we would like you to do this, can you do this? And most of the time they will. I think we're getting close. Do you guys have any questions before we continue? I don't have any here. Anything for the panel? Yes.
So you talked about APIs being a great technology saver. What about your presentation there? As you bring in different vendors, different solutions, bring them together, how do you unify your presentation layer for your employees?
Excellent question.
So it depends on what you're doing, okay? So I will throw out some vendors that we use that are just out there, no secret. We use Zendesk. Everybody uses Zendesk, right? There's a talk function in there. And what happens is some of these, when you buy them, like that's a big selling point for them. Like, hey, this is what we do. This is what we're good at. Here are all the vendors. We've already done all the hard work for you that you can one touch into our system just by, getting with them and signing a contract. So some of them like handle that presentation layer for you so that everything is combined in one space. And we try to look for organizations who are able to do that because by Zendesk having that suite of options that is available for me to add on, when I need a solution, I go to that button first. What apps are in here that I don't use? Can this solve my problem? Versus having to reinvent the wheel, getting all the stakeholders together, having a lot of meetings, talking about this and that, right? So a lot of the vendors in this space, when you talk to them, they are already integrated. They have partnerships already with our partners, and we utilize that. And that comes back to picking a good vendor, right? It's not just about the product, it's about the partnership that you're building with this person. I want a person, one, who really understands my business, so I want to take the time to explain to them what we do, how we're different, not to the public, but internally, like how we really different from our competitors, and make sure they understand that so that when I run into these challenges, I could say, hey, Jeanette, like, I know we use Clearspeed for this, but this is something I'm dealing with. Do you know someone in this space? Or is something integrated into your platform already that can solve this problem for me? And that's how we deal with a lot of that. Otherwise, you come back to the problem we faced years ago where there's 8 systems running, there's a million tabs open. The adjuster's like, can I get a third monitor? Like, for what? Like, what do you need a third monitor for? Well, I got all the windows everywhere already. So that's why it's important when you get these vendors, you really talk about that partnership that you have, because they will have a lot of those things kind of in-house as they work with other, people in your field where they can introduce you or they've already built a lot of those things into their product.
So it's not easy, cheesy, process on API services, because you'll meet with somebody and they'll be like, oh, don't worry about it. Yeah, we have an API. It just connected. No big deal. Great. Okay, cool. Turn on the button. And then I find out, I've got to spend some money and some time, and it's not happening now. So one of the biggest things that we accomplished building out our PAS was compliance. I did not want anybody manually handling anything. So what happened is that Instanda is our PAS, and they did an integration with Encipher, and I was like, yes, baby. This is awesome, right? Because that eliminates one, I gotta calculate surplus lines taxes. So that required the underwriter go in there and plug this in. And then also there's all the compliance around making sure everybody's compliant with the producer licensing and all that other stuff. So when I heard that they did that integration, I was like so happy, because now we're eliminating another process. Also, it's I'd love to have a one-stop shop. We're not going to have a one-stop shop for everything, but as long as I can continue to eliminate some of the stuff and have my people see everything in one kind of snapshot, and they have these partnerships that are going, I think it's important. And I'm seeing this in the industry, that now instead of seeing each other as all these vendors seeing each other as competitors, they're now realizing like, hey, I concentrate on this particular area and I do this really well, and I don't want to build that out. And versus us on our side, I don't want to homegrown anything, right? Because then I have to manage it. One of the things too is, everybody knows who meets with me, I always ask, are you SOC 2 compliant? Because I don't want to deal with that, right? So that's what I was going to say about API services. It's still my favorite though.
So I think we have time for one more question. If we could just get a final thought from each of you. What is one of your top priorities for driving improvements in the claim process, either people process or the technology part? for 2024? What is one of your top priorities for driving improvements to the claims process in 2024? But you can hit people, process, or technology.
I'll start it off. As part of our sort of spinoff from AIG, we are now in a partnership with the TPA. So we spent a lot of money putting up a new claim system. Now we're changing that, and that's fine. So my focus now, since it's a different relationship physically, is the data. Is making sure that those bordereaux, whether it's a true bordereau or it is more data that we have to flow from TPA to us to carriers, is pristine. And when it's not, and it won't be, we have a process by which we can quickly address those issues and get it back to where it needs to be.
Great. Ursula?
Well, I still, for 2024, it's all three. It's people, process, and technology. I think they work hand in hand as we continue to build our infrastructure. We're slowly growing, but we also are very focused on not having the growth, right, go like this. So we're slow growth over time. I think that's imperative too when you're building out systems and people and processes, is that all of a sudden I don't have somebody screaming on my door telling me, hey, by the way, we just wrote this much business and I needed you to finish this yesterday. So I think being very strategic about the way we take this, again, our quarterly goals. I think the quarterly goals have been working really well for us.
Great.
For me, for 2024, the biggest thing is data. And the reason I say that is this: it doesn't matter how much data you have if you don't know how to use it, or it's not in a digestible format for the people who need to utilize it. So I have lines and lines and lines and lines of data. But if I can't actually find where our business needs to improve and where the action areas are there, and that is my focus for 2024.
Actionable data, that's the
Yep,
word,
I need
right?
actionable data. I got a lot. But I need it to, I need
Do
a
something.
chart. I need to be able to actually read it.
Right.
So that's my focus for next year.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Everybody should be doing that. But also, when we talk about people, process, technology, I think I agree with you. It's interrelated. So you talk to the people to find out what processes are broken or need to be more efficient, and then you find the technology to fix it. And then when you bring in the technology, you fix the process, and hopefully then you've made it easier for the people.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you. Good night.